This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
Let me start by saying, if you don't believe in God, then you are a fool. I do not use those words lightly, any of them. If you don't understand that there was a creator of all things, not just you and me, but the universe, the atoms, the particles, and right down to the rules that all things follow, then you are a fool. To anyone who says that, it just happened, it is nature, then you are a fool for not understanding that is God. God is so elevated beyond human understanding that we cannot classify him. We cannot understand him. We exist because of him. I never met God. I met the one step below God, and it still made me want to evacuate my bowels. My name is Bruce Frunsquick, and if you look up that name, you'll know more about me than I ever wanted you to know. Born and raised in Midwest Ohio, in as close to a white picket fence upbringing you can get without the fence. I got a degree in accounting, and went to work for Manly Machines that made workout equipment. They were also money laundering for some big state government individuals. I blew the whistle on them, went to court, got my name out there, and no one wanted to hire a whistleblower. I lost my job, of course, and wife and house, and reputation, and most of my life. At the time I had no idea how my ex-wife got a sweetheart deal of taking almost all of my money, and the alimony was huge. We didn't even have any children, but her lifestyle needed to be maintained. My lifestyle was my problem. My life became working 3 jobs, having no money for myself, and barely living from one can of food to another. You might think I'm making that up, but I'm not. I got a really crappy 7th floor apartment. I could touch both walls with my hands out in one direction, and if I laid down and stretched out my toes would touch the door, and my fingertips the window. I note that it was the cheapest I could find, because anything beyond 6 floors, fire trucks can't reach with their ladders. This building was also so old it was grandfathered in for sprinklers and hoses inside the building. There was a communal bathroom down the hall for showers and sinks. I got a very small electric stove. With a bucket sink I would fill the bucket every day, elevate it, and water would run like a real sink, into the lower bucket for collection, to be dumped into the toilet. I could heat my food that way. My bed was elevated, my modification, to have some storage underneath. My 10-year-old laptop could barely get a Wi-Fi signal from the laundromat 7 floors below, if I was at my single pane of glass window. I have the lowest of the low cell phone plan on my 5-year-old smartphone. That's just my home life. I work as an input operative at an insurance company, for one of my jobs. I take those paper forms you fill out, and put that information into the computer. I do that for 6 hours a day, starting in the afternoon, with one 15-minute break. I then rush over to my second job as an over-the-night custodian and handyman at a megagym. I fix things that need fixing, and clean everything from 10 at night until 4 in the morning. Then I have a 2-hour shift as the peak times working at a parking garage booth. I work the gym and parking garage on the weekends too. After everything is paid for the month, I have about $50 for food for the month. I've lost a lot of weight. I was at my lowest. Then I got a letter. It was an official letter from the court saying I was being called before the court to re-evaluate my alimony. Given inflation costs and expensive living costs, I was going to be called before the court so my ex-wife would be given more of my money. Short of moving into a cardboard box, I was at my end. When I was reading this letter, after doing my garage gate job, by the single bare bulb in my apartment, I was pissed, hurt, mad, devastated that the woman I once loved was now going to take what little I had. What could I do? I'd have to try and find another job, one that hopefully paid more, at a place that didn't mind hiring someone that was not loyal to the company, but the law. That's what I get for being a whistleblower. I know I hit my head on the light bulb, because I found glass and had an electrical burn on my scalp. I don't remember this. I just remember waking up, having fallen from my elevated bed, leaning against my cooktop and sink, and feeling like my entire body had been beaten with a baseball bat. Did I need to mention I didn't have any health insurance? I made it to the hall bathroom to assess the damage. Still balding, but gracefully, with gray hairs on the beard and temples. Still with big ears, a wide face, and wide nose. Still with the blue eyes that got me my wife in the first place. Still with that tall, now stick-thin body. I also had twin electrical burn marks right where the hair was starting to thin. It was tender and raw, but not that bad, no real blood that didn't stop after some water and pressure. I still felt like crap, and decided my 4 hours of sleep might help. Sleep didn't help. My head was pounding when I went into the insurance company with all the other drones. I went into my boss's office that day. I liked the guy, even if he was old as sand and didn't need any makeup to look like a zombie. At the time I didn't know what I was doing, but I was wishing, hoping, begging, in my mind that he would give me a better job, more money, or both. That's what happened. I had come up with a short program to autofill most of what was coming from the insurance forms. It really was mostly the same stuff. This gave me time to do the internal courses to get a better position. Someone noticed. It was between me and Wendy, another drone, on who was going to be offered a better job, normal hours and twice the pay. I wondered why Wendy would even be considered the job. That's when my boss volunteered information that Wendy had been giving him blowjobs every other day, for a month. I don't know what surprised me most, the vastly overweight Wendy could get on her knees, or my boss survived the experience. I remember thinking,
Fuck Wendy, give me the job.
That's when my boss said,
Fuck Wendy and give you the job.
one thing about my boss, he never swore. I've never heard as much as a hell come out of his mouth. He was a good man in that respect. He didn't even notice he had said something vulgar, and went on to write up the paperwork to give me the job. I wouldn't be working for him anymore, and hoped his funeral was years away. I spent the rest of my time seeing what I would be doing at the insurance company. It came with benefits like health insurance, which would be nice. I thought about my garage gate attendant job, and wondered if I could only work that on the weekends. I also knew I would have to adjust my time at the mega gym. I liked working at Lift for Life gym. If nothing else than to see the good-looking women in tight and or revealing outfits improving their bodies. Hey, I'm a guy after all. I got into work early, and went to talk to the boss. I like Julie. She'd been in the fitness model world for years, and only dropped out to make real money to put her daughter through college. Julie had auburn hair, a tight body from her modeling past, with large fake breasts, also from her modeling past, and only a few wrinkles on her otherwise pink face. That face was quite frustrated when I popped my head in. When Julie said,
Do you know anything about accounting software?
I wasn't drooling, but I was close. I've always loved numbers, and how they flow together. I'm one of those guys that can look at a stream of numbers or computer code, and see how things fit together. When I looked at the columns of numbers and rows of expenses, I noticed something was off. I asked if I could take a look, giving her a brief review of my education and past, minus the whistleblower part. I saw stuff right away. Electricity and water were exceeding anything that it should have been. Money for supplies would have bought us enough to fill half the gym. The perishable food expense for the small cafe was outrageous. Just looking at the numbers was exciting to me. What was also exciting was being next to Julie. It had been years since I had been with a woman. Here I was, next to a stunningly mature woman, with her body brushing against mine. Her large breasts touching my arm from time to time. It was more action than I had gotten long before my divorce. I was feeling something down between my legs, and it felt good. I didn't know at the time what was happening to Julie, but I knew what she was doing. She put her hand on my thigh. It made me more excited. That hand moved closer to the excitement, and everything increased down there. I felt that hand about to. I stopped Julie's hand by stating there was clear levels of fraud. Julie was shocked that she had her hand so close to where there was clearly excitement going on in my tented pants. Julie quickly got onto her phone to call her attorney husband. This was the point where I went from handyman and janitorial to accountant again. After I reviewed what I immediately saw as problems with Julie, while she related to her husband Phil, there was a shift in things. I was told I wasn't going to be cleaning or fixing things again, and would be focused on money. Phil was the one that told Julie to offer me more money, and let me set my own hours. That was the best thing I'd heard all day. I even got my own office. Granted, it was the smallest room in the gym, but it had a window looking out onto the cardio and weightlifting areas. I could still feel the tingling in my leg where Julie put her hand there. The point when I realized something was going on with me was when I went to the all-night convenience store for food. Since I didn't have a refrigerator, I got what I needed for the day, and that usually amounted to a jar of peanut butter, a can of beans, and a can of vegetables. This would be breakfast, lunch and dinner for 2 days. I splurged and got a can of corn since I was feeling good about myself. Then when I got to the register to pay, in came some guy with a gun. I don't know guns, but this one looked real, if a bit large for this hooded guy's hand. I didn't see his face when he pointed it at Mr. Commandic's head and demanded money. I remember thinking,
This guy is being so stupid about his life. He should put the gun down, get on his knees, and beg forgiveness.
I am being really stupid about my life.
the guy said. He pulled back his hood and showed himself to be barely a teenager. He stepped back and put the gun, rather gingerly, on the floor, before getting on his knees. He put his hands behind his head, like there was a police officer arresting him.
I am so sorry I did this. When you call the cops, just know I'm really sorry and please forgive me.
Mr. Commandic walked around the counter, and with moves that seemed like he knew what he was doing, ejected the clip on the gun, and pulled back the top to eject the bullet inside. It was then that Mr. Commandic told the kid to leave, and never come back. That poor kid ran out of there like it was a track meet. Mr. Commandic checked me out before he called the cops about a gun left in his store. Did I do that? I couldn't sleep. Not just that it was way earlier than my usual bedtime, but also because I was thinking. I still hadn't replaced the bulb in my place, but the windows gave some light. I was looking out my window, and wondering if I had done things to people. I saw a guy walking on the street, and thought he should spin around. He did. I saw a guy walking his dog, and thought he should trip and stumble. He did. I saw a drunk woman walking down the sidewalk, and I had her bump into a pole. She did. Harder than I intended. At the insurance company, meeting everyone officially for the first time, and getting down to work. I was to come up with a way to classify insurance claims. I wrote the computer program to do so in 2 hours. I spent most of the rest of the day messing with people. Coffee dripping out of one guy's mouth. Bright red lipstick smear on one woman's face. Outside my cubicle became a tripping hazard as I made everyone stumble when I saw them through the gap in the wall. I didn't do anything outlandish. The outlandish side of me came out at the gym after the insurance company. Looking at those numbers was so thrilling. I felt like a hunter in the digital world of fraud. Purchase orders, payments, transfers, deliveries, receipts, and inventory were all grouped together. Where the insurance company was vast, structured, and bright. Lift for Life Gym was chaotic, nebulous, feeling like a trap could be sprung at any moment, and knowing there was a villain somewhere. It turned out to be villains. One person was stealing money from the gym, and soon it seemed like a dozen were. I was even finding the legal code for what they were violating. I sent this to Julie as soon as I found an item of fraud. The gym was filled with thieves. The guy that ran the pools was buying a lot more chemicals than would ever be needed, and then using them in his own pool cleaning service. The second in charge of the cafe was buying the fruits and vegetables there, and reselling them at a farmer's market. Even the guy getting the equipment for the gym was paying inflated prices and getting a kickback from the company that sold the machines. I could prove it all. Somehow this made me do more work. Julie started firing and letting the legal people know of the issues. I was doing, not just the accounting, but had been put on the front desk to check people in. I was seeing how the sausage was made, and it was gross. I showed Julie how to improve the check-in, payment, and scheduling system. Payroll was also a mess, and I showed how to streamline that. This was while I was checking people in at the front desk. Some of those people were very sexy women. These women were hotter than Julie, and since I had only worked overnight, I had never met them before. They'd never met me. This gave me a great opportunity to see about this new gift I had. When I saw a good-looking single woman, I would give her a thought of how she found me the sexiest man alive, and would lust for me more than anyone in her past. Maybe a little perverted, but I loved seeing a woman's nipples pop out in her top when she got a good look at my blue eyes. The night flew by as I was talking with sexy women, who all wanted me sexually, while checking people in. At one point, I had 5 women around me, all wanting to hear everything I said while looking at me with the dreamy look of a woman picturing me naked. I didn't stop some women that would squeeze my ass, or cop a feel. I liked it, and the women. I was hesitant when my shift ended, and I still had 3 women around me, ready to take me back to their place and do very naughty things to me. The closest woman won out, while I got the names and numbers of the other women. She went by the name Betty, and she had dirty blonde hair, very pale skin, large artificial breasts, and a tight body that showed off her muscles and veins of a woman trying to prove something. Betty and I made love that night. It was hot and heavy, and I didn't last long. It had been years. I would constantly think things at Betty, and she would do them, no matter what it was. The sexy naked dance was hot. Her pleasuring herself on my crotch was delightful, if only a little painful. Her lips and tongue to get me hard again was very erotic. Inside of her body was hot and wet, and I would think at her that I felt so good that she was letting the climax come, and enjoy every second of it. Then we did it again. Then we did it again. And we did it so many times that Betty's mind couldn't take another orgasm and she dropped onto me. Being pinned by a hot, sweaty, heaving, still shaking, naked babe was the best feeling I'd had in a long, long time. In the morning Betty let me know I was a better lover than she ever dreamed anyone could possibly be. We did it again in the shower, together. By this time, I knew I was controlling her, if not mind, then will. Anything I thought at her, she would do. It didn't matter what it was, or what she was doing before, she did what I wanted. I even tested out some long-term commands, like she was going to dye her hair fire engine red, and not care what anyone, including the people at her modeling company, thought. She'd also hit the gym, and do a lot more weightlifting, as in daily for hours, to build muscles. This was just a test. Over the weeks I learned how to improve and refine this ability I had. At the insurance company, I learned the ropes. I also learned how the company tried to get out of paying some legitimate claims. I might have been low on the pecking order, but I had some power. I also was able to show who was really trying to take advantage of the company. I also put together a presentation to show that paying out claims might cost the company money, but an increase in business to people who know their claims will be accepted and paid out would make a net profit. The presentation went well when I saw one of the VPs in the meeting nodding his head in agreement. I could have finished things off. I made everyone there think it was an excellent idea, but I didn't have to. I was moved up after that, from cubicle to office, granted without windows and about the same size as my apartment, but with a real door that I never closed. I quit my garage gate job. They offered me 10 cents more an hour. I turned them down. If it had been a month before, I would have jumped at that offer. Lift for Life was completely changed, internally. The only thing the regulars noticed was that there were new employees. Really, the gym was making more money than ever before. With the corruption cut out and things more organized, there was enough money for some real improvements. Julie was even able to hire some fitness models, like she was, to do commercials about the gym. I suggested instead of one movie-level quality commercial, make half a dozen TV-level quality commercials, and then cycle through them on people's internet advertisements. One woman, Jennifer Lane, was a super sexy woman that I will admit I had to have. Long blonde hair, blue eyes, high cheekbones, a pointed chin, a long neck, sculpted shoulders, big fake breasts, an hourglass figure with obliques and six-pack abs at all times, and slightly flaring hips with a firm ass and long muscular legs and calves. I'd never heard of Jennifer Lane before, and I regret that. Seeing her in person made me abandon any pretense that I was an honorable man. Even before I met her officially, I was sending thoughts at her that she wanted me in every sexual way possible, and care nothing for what anyone else thought. I wasn't involved in making the commercials, but every time there was a break in the action Jennifer was right there, next to me, flirting. Jennifer wanted to know everything about me, and when she thought no one could hear, asked me how big I was.
Are you a thumb or a forearm?
Jennifer asked, looking into my eyes.
Leaning more towards a forearm, but not as girthy.
I said to her eyes going wide.
I'd love to confirm that, tonight at your place.
Jennifer said, licking her lips.
My place isn't set up for guests.
I said, thinking I didn't even have a chair.
Don't you have a hotel room?
She did. We made a mess. Any thought that came to my mind for Jennifer to do, went out to her, and she did it. I made her addicted to having sex with me. Even when I could tell she was tired, and looked like she was about to claim she was done, with a thought from me, and she was more than willing and eager to keep going. It wasn't making love. It was having wild sex like I was a teenager again. Her body was magnificent, and she let me have all of it, every inch. She worshipped my body, from toes to earlobes. We even put her large breasts to good use. She was so close to passing out on her last climax, I felt bad and gave her a rest. That rest turned into us sleeping, nude, curled up together. The next day, Jennifer was asking Julie if she could get hired on at Lift for Life Gym as an instructor, and just do the fitness modeling thing on the side. I might have made her too addicted to sex with me. With the highs, there are lows. My low was facing my ex-wife in court. Christine barely stood past 4 feet, 8 inches. Her dark, dyed hair was cut short. Her brown eyes could hold love or venom. When she came into court, showing she'd put on even more weight than the last time I'd seen her, those eyes held venom, lots of it. Of course, I used my powers to make Christine state on the record, before the judge, why she wanted more money. I was not prepared for the truth. When I first got divorced, I used our family attorney, first name Robert. Christine got an attorney named Heather. I had no idea they were brother and sister, since Heather took her husband's last name. Christine knew, and hatched a plot to make money from them. Robert, Heather, and Christine would take me for all I'm worth, for the rest of my life. Robert and Heather would get 10% each, and Christine would get the rest. It also turned out Christine was having an affair with Robert, behind Robert's wife's back. The latest call to look at re-evaluating the alimony was for Christine to get liposuction for Robert. I didn't count how many times the judge had to remind Christine she was under oath, but it was a lot. The judge asked only a few questions of Christine.
Do you work?
No.
Can you work?
Yes.
Why don't you work?
I have Bruce.
The alimony was cut down to a quarter of what it was, which will be cut in half every year, until it was under $100 a month, at which time it would be cut off entirely. As soon as we were dismissed, Christine was on her phone calling Heather. I overheard some of it about how Christine screwed up, and wished Heather was there. I was on my way to file the forms to have Robert, Heather, and Christine charged with conspiracy to defraud me. Robert also needed to be disbarred since he should have been acting on my interests and not his. For the next 2 months, I was living a golden life. The insurance company heard what I was doing at the Lift for Life gym, and asked me to take a look at their books. Really, not as much fraud as I would have expected from such a large company. A few kickbacks were here and there for some people. There were things charged to the corporate card that shouldn't have been. One woman got fired for using her position to get money and sex from her underlings. All in all, I was given a huge bonus, out of season, just to thank me for my work. With everything going on, I was looking for a better place to live. At Lift for Life gym, the personnel changed, and so did the clients. I was making any woman that I saw into what I wanted in a woman. I wanted them with muscles that could be seen, even when not flexing. I wanted them with low body fat so it was easier to see those muscles. Every woman was given the strong urge to get breast implants, the larger the better. I'm sure the plastic surgeons in the area were incredibly busy. The sexiest of sexy women would always dress to show more skin than was covered up, in particular their abs and arms. I'd been having sex almost every other day. Sometimes I would have one woman, and sometimes I would have more than one woman. With a thought, women would be open and willing to explore their bisexual side. Jennifer even introduced me to some of her fellow fitness models, who became our fellow bedmates for multiple evenings. The only thing constant in the universe is change. It was evening, and I was at the front desk of the gym. I didn't have to be, but when someone calls off sick and sends a picture of a thermometer reading 102.3, just let him stay home. That's when 3 stunning women came into the gym. I'd never seen them before, but they all came in as a group. My first thought was that they were all sisters given their similar Greek facial features. One woman had golden blonde hair, another woman had dark brown to black hair, and the third woman dyed her hair pink with purple tones. Each had large buoyant breasts and tight firm abs. They all had similar style 2-piece outfits, showing off lots of cleavage and midriff, but in different primary colors. These 3 women were about to believe in love at first sight, and if not love, sexual slavery. As soon as I looked the dark-haired woman in the eyes, she gasped and said out loud,
"I love him."
That was quick,
said the blonde, getting into a fighting stance.
"Don't look him in the eyes."
The pink-haired yelled, covering her eyes with her arm. I think I laughed since eye contact wasn't necessary. In a second, all 3 were at the counter, smiles on their faces and lust in their eyes. I watched as their nipples showed on their tight, colorful tops. I wasn't sure who they were, but I laid into their minds every thought I could muster of obedience, lust, desire, and servitude. In seconds they were sweaty and panting like dogs with lust for me. That was good. I wanted them to only focus on me. They knew something about me, and I wanted to know what. I was not prepared for what they were about to tell me. It hurt to see how much a hotel room cost, But that's because I wasn't used to spending that much on something as fleeting as a hotel room, and not even a very good one. I didn't even consider taking them back to my place. I didn't even think 2 of them could fit. Even before I had the door closed, those women had literally ripped their clothes off. Their naked bodies were spectacular, if not disturbingly similar, as if they only had one mold and used it on all of them. When we were passionately having energetic and sweaty sex, I wasn't sure who I was using. The only differences were their hair colors and voices. Even the feeling inside of them was almost exactly the same. Despite the strange women having one orgasm after another, after another, after another, I exhausted before they did. As much as I wanted to watch the 3 of them have a wild lesbian orgy, I wanted answers more. It turned out their names were Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. Very Greek names. They also sounded very familiar. Like some distant memory was hit upon, not one name in particular, but those 3 names together. Clotho offered up that they were the Fates, they were Moiral. I thought that was some kind of band or something. Lachesis laughed and pointed at Clotho, calling her the spinner, herself as the measurer, and Atropos as the cutter. I felt dizzy. The 3 Fates. The 3 Fates. These were the women from Greek mythology that controlled the thread of life. These were mythological figures that should have been people made up to explain death. I had just had wild hot sweaty sex with 3 goddesses. That does something to you. I said to the ladies to prove it. Suddenly, I was in a vast plane of existence where there were countless tapestries being woven from strings that came from the clouds above. Each tapestry was a person, their life, their loves, their failures, their hopes, their disasters, their triumphs. The Fates showed me mine. It wasn't the future. It was my horrible past. Looking at how the threads turned my life into a story was surreal. Then Atropos pointed to a recent part of my tapestry. The thread had been blackened, diseased, rotted, but after that portion, my thread branched out, smaller slender threads that went to other people's tapestries. Where those other people's tapestries were touched, their weaving changed. I changed their fates. Atropos had a pair of scissors in her hand. I was almost sick when I saw her go to cut one of the threads from my tapestry to another's. The scissors passed right through the thread, like it wasn't even there. That seemed wrong. Atropos went to my thread, the one from the clouds, and tried to cut it. Try as she might, the thread kept slipping between the blades. Whatever my life was, it couldn't be ended. At least I couldn't be ended by Atropos. When I would mess up as a child, my father would always ask, "Why are you like this?" That seemed to apply here. I was bewildered by having 3, still naked, still sexy, still lustful, goddesses with spectacularly toned bodies basically trying and failing to kill me. Clotho could not change how my tapestry was being spun, so she had no control over my destiny. Lachesis couldn't even measure how long my tapestry was, or was going to be, so that was off the table too. We already saw how Atropos couldn't end me, or my control over others. This was a lot to take in for a humble accountant. That and the 3 sexy goddesses were on their knees looking up at me with pure lust in their eyes. Then Hera showed up. I heard the cow first, and then there was a peacock, and suddenly she was there holding a pomegranate and wearing a toga. Otherwise, she looked normal. She had that Greek nose and flat cheekbones. She wasn't tall or commanding. Her hair was curly black. She had the body of a school teacher. If it wasn't for the 3 fates crying out to her as Hera, I wouldn't have guessed it. When Hera took in what the fates were doing, she wasn't happy with me. I imagine I might have been able to cheat death, but you'd be surprised what you can live through. It looked like Hera was about to do something very, very unpleasant to me. So I put all my mental energy into making her just as loyal and obedient and lustful as the fates were, if not more. Hera trembled. The pomegranate fell from her hand. She dropped to her knees and bowed, really quick too. Even the cow seemed surprised. She was breathing hard, and I was scared I did something really bad to her. I had turned her into my slave. The queen of all minor gods had just been turned into the obedient subject to a mortal. Hera was quite ashamed by all this, but she couldn't help herself. I probably should have done something heroic in that field of tapestries, but I was being stupid. Hey, I'm human. I asked Hera if she could change her appearance to something more big-breasted, large-muscled, and low body fat. Yes, she could. In an instant she was naked, and that wasn't the only shock. Her skin took on a deep natural tan of someone from southern Spain or upper Egypt. Her breasts ballooned out, more of half a grapefruit size than the twin watermelons I was hoping for. Her body fat must have been in the low single digits to show off her increased muscles. I loved seeing her thighs with the thick cords of muscles. Her ass looked solid enough to break rocks on. Her abs were so defined if I wanted to do laundry, those would have been my washboard. I could see her striated pectoral muscles around her inflated breasts. Her shoulders were sizable, streaked with valleys, and defined. Her biceps distended out on her arms, looking like they could detach. Even her face took less of a plain look and more a Brazilian beauty looks with thick lips and a smaller nose. It took me a moment to realize that her toga was gone too. Hera, queen of the Greek gods, had turned herself into a fitness beauty for me.
What have you done to my wife?
Boomed from the clouds. Zeus has entered the game. In my mind, this was said like a baseball announcer when there was a replacement on the mound. It was getting crowded. If you're picturing an old guy with a beard, forget it. This guy looked like some corporate raider with a charcoal suit, well-cut graying hair, and without a beard. I expected to see a briefcase. It didn't take long for Zeus to go from being mad at me, to being mad at Hera for kneeling before a mortal, to being mad at the fates for letting this happen, to being mad at me again. The real lightning bolt in his hand was far more frightening than anything else I had ever witnessed before then. It got worse later, but that was later. Right then, I did the most unmanly thing you can think of, but the fates were eager to clean things up. I knew my power worked on men. I'd even say it worked better on men. I just have no sexual interest in men, or in this case the god that took down the Titans and could throw lightning bolts. I projected my thoughts of obedience and servitude at Zeus. I bombarded him with thoughts of submitting to me, pleasing me in any way he could. I wanted him, not just on his knees bowing to me, but groveling and begging me to command him. I had my eyes closed as I did this, hoping I didn't open my eyes and see him just standing there. When I did this mental blast for a few minutes, I did crack an eye open. Zeus was bowing and sobbing, saying that he was nothing before me. I wasn't the only one with a jaw suddenly hanging open. The four women were in shocked awe that Zeus, the king of the gods, the supreme ruler of the planet, was being compliant to me, a mortal. I suggested we take the party to someplace a little more subdued. I didn't pick a coffee shop, but it worked. Zeus had on his suit, and I had been given a plain white t-shirt and blue shorts. Hera, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos all had on aprons of the coffee shop, and nothing else. I was not going to complain about them being mostly naked. They asked me what I wanted to drink, and I just asked for the house blend. I was advised against it since if I tasted ambrosia then everything else will taste like sand in comparison for the rest of my life. I went with whatever they thought was best. Zeus was still in his suit when he started telling me about the gods and goddesses under his rule, and all the other deities around. There's one big guy. This is God that all other gods have to defer to. The good news is that the Creator doesn't interfere, much, in the day-to-day operations of the universe. I asked why does every myth about gods not refer back to the one God? This was marketing, since those that want to be in charge, the minor gods, don't want to mention there's someone more powerful than they are. Besides, even the minor gods have a hard time classifying the god. We humans don't stand a chance at understanding a being that can create all things from nothing. This was a good point. I let Zeus keep talking. There are two types of gods. One type is the reality gods. This is life and death. This is space and time. This was chaos and order. Chaos and order are two reality gods just below the big guy. These two were the ones not happy with me, but Zeus wanted to talk about himself. The other type of gods are the more human-based gods like himself. Zeus and his fellow gods fell into this category. Buddha and his clan were human-based gods too. All those Native American and South American gods were grouped into human-based too. Some gods controlled the environment while other gods can control emotions and human spirits. To be selfish myself, I asked what I was? I was an anomaly that chaos and order wanted removed before I did something serious. Whatever I was screwing up the planned-out order of things that pleased chaos, but since I was doing things that were logical for humans, I was pleasing order. Twist that around and I was pissing the other one off too. That's why they went to Zeus to get to the fates, to have them cut my thread. When my thread wouldn't cut, the fates went looking for me. Now, what? Zeus, being the asshole he is, devoted to me or not, snapped his fingers. I was in space, sort of. It wasn't the vacuum of space, but more like a black void. Before me were two humanoid figures that you could only tell they were there because of the stars you could see inside of them. No faces, but head shapes that might have been human size in proportion to their 2 arms, 2 legs, and torso bodies. I didn't expect them to speak, and I didn't expect them to use English.
You, Bruce Frunsquick, should not exist, and I am willing to wipe out this universe to restore balance,
said one of the beings of chaos and order. If I hadn't already evacuated my bowels, I would have done so right then and there. Nothing like having a god of creation decide you were so much of a danger that myself and everything around me needed to go too. I chose not to beg. I didn't see compassion getting to these gods. I went for logical. I plead my case that whatever happened to me could happen when the next round of life came up. Better to study me and figure out what happened so it can never happen again. If there was a conversation between the two, I didn't hear it. A question was posed to me. If I could free Hera, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos, would I? I said I would do so only if they didn't try and murder me right then and there. This must have been acceptable since they stopped talking. They stopped talking to me. After what seemed like an hour they started talking to Zeus. I was to be under Zeus's stewardship. I was to be taught how to control my powers. Under no circumstances am I to leave Earth, physically or spiritually. With that, I was back on Earth, in that cheap motel room, alone. I'm not sure what kind of spiritual awakening I should have had from this, but I didn't really have one. Does the big guy God care about humans? It sounds like he sort of does. Off and on kind of. Like looking at a child's ant farm, you don't always check it out, but you are watching from time to time, and interfering at times. Is it not a bad thing to at least thank God for creating all things? I think so. I'm rather partial to gravity and life myself. That doesn't mean I wasn't still going to use my powers to get sex, and lots of it, from the sexiest women around. As I was laying on the hotel bed, thinking about things, I decided on a couple of issues for myself. First, I had to get a new place to live. I didn't want much, maybe a condo, where I didn't have to deal with the lawn and stuff, but I could still have a garage. Second, I was going to keep working at the insurance company, but that was only because I liked it, and they could give me a better office. Third, I was still going to work at Lift for Life Gym. The gym needed me to help organize things, and I felt responsible for it. I also liked having sexy women around me at all times to pick from. Fourth, I was going to start going to church on Sundays. One more voice in the crowd shouting a thank you to the big guy. The condo wasn't hard to find or get. 3 bedrooms, a full basement, and an attached garage. I even went and got myself a car. Not a new car, but one that ran good enough and I didn't look like a homeless person driving it. I gave written testimony against Robert and Heather, who were disbarred and were charged with criminal violations. Christine turned witness against them, and had to get a job at the local Walmart. Jennifer has all but moved into my place. I shaved off my beard. I was at the gym, hooking up a new card printer, at the front desk. I then heard a voice that I immediately recognized. I popped up to see Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos in their sexy 2-piece outfits showing off their abs. They still had that unquenchable lust in their eyes. Right behind them was Hera, trying to keep her peacock outside. Hera had on an even more revealing orange workout bikini. I offered to show them around. Sex with the Queen of the Gods can be checked off my bucket list. She was different. Not better or worse than anyone, but just different in the way she moved, moaned, climaxed, and did many sexual things. It was like she wasn't sure what thumbs were for. Zeus, being Zeus, couldn't be bothered to educate me on how to use my abilities. Zeus told Hera to do it, and Hera also recruited Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos to help. To help they were going to be working closely with me, very closely. Their first step was to get Julie to hire them. I helped with Julie's sudden desire to hire on 4 new, overly sexy trainers. Being goddesses, they also needed to learn about humans, firsthand. Jennifer wasn't happy with 4 new women in bed with us, until I thought at Jennifer that sharing me with 4 other women excited her to no end. With tutelage from the goddesses, I've gotten really good with my powers. Where before I was driving my will into people's minds like a sledgehammer to a wall, now I am using a pneumatic drill to make fine and precise marks. I can make anyone do or think anything I want. Most of the time people don't even realize they're doing things outside of the norm. I say most of the time because when a sexy woman finds herself dropping to her knees and giving me a blowjob, without even knowing my name, it can raise some eyebrows. I tried to free Hera, Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos from my control over them. I really had no idea what I was doing, and neither did they. I tried different thoughts, controls, commands, scripts, and none of them did much beyond the women getting pissed that I was rejecting them. They loved me, and would do anything for me, and would do so for as long as I would live. I was mortal, right? Eventually I would grow old, or older, and die, right? We all looked at Atropos, and she just shrugged. So, now, what? I have no idea. I'm not out to be king, or a god, or anything. I'm not out to take over a company and rule over some corporate empire. I want a simple life. Sex with beautiful women is on the list, but I have 4 goddesses and 1 hyper-sexy fitness model nearly every night. I guess I want what every guy wants. I want to love and be loved. That's a good thing.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not, have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.